regarding the diet itself, we are all throwing around the term whole food plant-based. Brian and Dr. Cousins, you have specifically said that an ideal diet is not just cooked beans, cooked whole grains, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. What you've said is the ideal diet is mostly a raw diet, which means sprouted seeds, vegetables, and sprouted nuts and seeds. But mostly you're saying sprouts and vegetables is the core of your diet. And you've demonstrated fantastic health results for everything. But the one issue with it is I've tried it and I don't get filled up the way I do with cooked beans. And I've asked you about it and you've told me I'm a fast oxidizer. Gabriel, you've said it's a spiritual thing, emptiness. It could be. And I'm saying that I've given it a really fair chance for many years. 16 different sprouts, giant bowl, ate it for 45 minutes for lunch, 45 minutes for dinner. And no matter what I do, it's not the same as a big bowl of cooked lentils with onions. And I'm saying I love you guys and I appreciate your information and I know that you're amazing and I do believe it works great, but it's a practical matter. I know almost no one that is saying they can live on greens and sprouts, which means anyone who's a raw foodist is either eating a lot of fruit, which you haven't recommended, or they're loading up on nut seeds, olives, and avocados. And so I guess I'm saying, unless I'm going to eat macadamia nuts and avocados in big quantities and olives every single day, I feel like I need to eat cooked beans. And I don't think I'm alone because when we do webinars and seminars, we can barely find anyone who really can stick to a sprouted diet. So I'm wondering, do we really need to be raw? Because it seems like you have to be a high fat eater to be raw, where it seems so much easier to just eat cooked beans at dinner. And you could all comment on this, on the raw versus cooked.
You can
So
do
some
raw
of us
yam
don't eat,
and cook
some of
yam.
us don't eat dinner. So let's start with when you're doing live food. When you cook food, you lose 50% of the protein, 60 to 70% of the vitamins and minerals, and up to 96% of the phytonutrients. So as I've evolved, and I'm talking the 2000 push-up type thing, I don't eat dinner. And I hardly have breakfast, have one meal a day. How does that happen? Worse, I don't take digestive enzymes anymore. How does that happen? So there is a regeneration that goes on. The less you eat, the longer you live. And we can look at that in terms of the upgrading of your gene expression, okay? And that's, I think, the important thing. And I want to add to something to it, is that part of my diet is I meditate 2 hours a day. And we know in the research that's been done is if you're meditating for 5 years, your general physiology is 15 years younger. So we got to kind of look a little bit broader into that. So I eat one meal a day. I don't eat dinner. Okay. I mean, I have liquids and I have fluids, but I'm not talking about solids. So the less you eat, the longer you live. So there's the whole other piece there that's kind of missing in the discussion. You still have the right ratio according to your chromosome 19. Different issue. So I just want to throw that into the bigger picture. I don't even think about beans. I mean, I understand that's okay because where you're at. But when you get clear, your desires for all these things go away too. And and it's like you have energy all day long. Why would you want to eat beans? Now, I know you're making a point, and I'm making an opposite point, is your physiology is still requiring something like that. We have to go with where our physiology is for where we are. So that's the point I'm trying to make there.
So let me chime in here a little bit. It's got to be individually looked at. So I've worked with so many people that have been able to eat this way. I don't know if people call into the Real Truth About Health, and they're not those people, but I also see a lot of people struggle with this. And, you know, you and I have had this conversation over the 20 years we've known each other. There is an emotional component. Go back to what Gabriel pointed out. Meditation actually puts you into a deep sense of relaxation, and there's a calm, and cortisol levels go down. And the fact
It
of the
also
matter
grows
is,
your brain. It also actually grows your brain. Brain
it does grow your brain. Yeah, you don't lose. As a matter of fact, with solid meditators, when they looked at the Tibetan monks as an example, they don't lose 1% every 10 years. As a matter of fact, they gained. They have larger brains than anyone else. And they don't say much. It's unfortunate. They'd be pretty smart, I think. But the reality is that there is an emotional component to this. And I had that emotional component. When I first ate this way, what I served the entire campus with 200 people, I used to eat myself in a day. And just like Gabriel, but this isn't fair to talk to a 50-year-old or certainly a 20-year-old or an athlete. I've only eaten one meal a day for the last 15 to 20 years. But I drink massive amounts of juices with high caloric intake made of sprouts, which have the essential fatty acids in it. You could live on those juices. You'd be awfully skinny. But, you know, so what are we eating and what are we not eating? Are we taking, I'm drinking 1 quart to 1.5 quarts of green juice a day because it's available here for the average person, and economically they may not be able to do that. But that alone gives you a caloric intake for energy. And then the nutrient load. Ditto what you said. I mean, proteins are pretty much destroyed when you cook a food, and vitamins are virtually gone. And if you look at the most important reason the Living Food Program has had the most success in reversing all catastrophic diseases, and those of us that live this way, we don't age, is the phytochemicals. And one of the guys who's on our faculty for our online program, Dr. David Williams, who's been here, and basically tells us, you cook any food above 115, they're gone. And then you look at phenols. I mean, the list goes on. And let's go back to the oil thing. We've known since I was a 1-year-old boy, science, and nobody's successfully reversed this, that when you heat anything with an oil in it, it becomes carcinogenic, period. This is not an opinion. This is in the book. You know, so lettuce has oil in it. Spinach has oil in it. There's nothing that doesn't have oil, no less nuts. And I used to eat nothing but roasted nuts. When I started to eat raw nuts, by the way, they didn't taste good to me because they didn't have salt and they didn't have God knows what, peanut oil on them or whatever. So this takes a transition. And when one is having happy life with their work, with their partners, with their family, and they feel secure, and I strongly advise, the current magazine that's coming out now is on mindfulness, that you take that into account. And I used to think I had no problems because I had great parents, all of the things I just mentioned I have. But by the way, when I was hypnotized, I was shocked at the issues I had. And after they released those things, I felt like a different person. I went from a guy carrying rocks in my pants to a guy that was flying, just from one session where I went into hypnosis and had issues that are silly issues to a grown adult, but seemingly they were stopping me from flourishing. So I think there's so many things we have to take into account. And I agree with you, Stephen. Very practically, most people have a hard time to adapt the lightness of life, that they really struggle and they think struggle is part of it. And they think, you know, suffering is part of it and food is everything. But eventually when you have a real life and a big life and a happy life, food becomes a fuel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you can't, the key is you can't eat your way to God. And you have to look at, is longevity the goal of life or is God the goal of life?
Right.
Exactly.
And I think those are
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
important differences between the transhumanism, which is talking about how long you live, and your soul merging with God as the primary goal in life. They're really important, gigantic differences in what life is about. I think you're
Yeah,
alluding to some of that.
Thank you.
If I can say something about it, I do not do well on grains. I have never done well on grains. I'm always a little overweight. I think carbs lead to a little bit of water retention. They have never really worked for me. So I eat seeds and nuts, But I have also found out, and I tested it because people said, well, you should eat like nature makes it. Perfect health comes from nature. And I had a doubt about it. I said, well, you know, nature's mandate is not necessarily optimum health. You should be healthy enough to be born, to be able to grow up, to have children, to be around till the children don't need you anymore. And then nature doesn't need you anymore either. And so I actually did a test. I tried to get all my oil from Whole Foods. I used flax, sunflower, and sesame seeds. Flax for omega-3s, sunflower and sesame for omega-6s. The ratio was twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. That's the ratio we found the most effective in terms of energy and healing and all of the things we talk about. And even in summer in California, when it was warm, when I need less oil than in winter, because you burn oil in winter to create heat, except if you're in Florida, of course. There's no winter there, right? So even in summer, when I need less oil, I could not keep my skin soft and velvety. My skin got dry. And so I say, okay, get all the fat you need from seeds if you want. If you can get your skin to feel oiled from within, good. But I can't do it that way. It doesn't.
My new book, Stephen, I'm going to give you a copy. It comes out in about 2 weeks, is Discovering You and You. And this entire book is on this issue. I wrote the book for this answer, by the way.
Hey guys, I've been practicing timeline therapy, which releases negative emotions and limiting beliefs. I learned from Dr. Richard Bandler, Dr. Tad James. I worked with Tony Robbins, and I know that the emotional component is the biggest reason that holds people back from eating a whole foods diet. They make all these excuses. I don't have time to eat properly. I can't eat at restaurants. I don't have time to exercise. Well, bullshit. I'm sorry for the word, but the truth is your mind has been programmed since you were 7 years old to believe in advertising that we've all been inundated and programmed to believe Coca-Cola is actually good for you. This is an insane culture. And if we believe that the hospitals, right? The hospitals, Brian, they're not serving what you serve. They're serving the same stuff they serve at the Holiday Inn because they're worried the patients will rate them badly because they're worried they won't like the food. I went into Lee Shackley's home and the wife, stage 4 Alzheimer's, and I said, we're going to change her diet. And the RD argued with me. She says, no, we're not. She won't eat it. She eats meatballs and sausage and lasagna. And I said, no, we're going to make her the food. She can't, she's drooling. She doesn't know what she's eating. So I gave her the cookbook like I did Tony Robbins. They prepared all the food, and sure enough, she ate the food. She started getting better. We put her on outdoors for vitamin D. We put her on hormones, IV injections, stem cells. The doctor was fired because Lee Shackley said, Nick, if he won't follow what you say, fire him and bring in your own doctor. I did. Within about 2 months, she went from stage 4 Alzheimer's to Newport Beach, Fashion Island in her limo, walked up to each storekeeper and greeted them by name and recalled every conversation. This is doable, folks. Most of these people are drug-induced Alzheimer's, dementia. I have clients coming to me that are very famous and they're 70, 80 years old. They're on so many drugs. It's insane. Opiates is the #1 cause of death. Oxycontin of people. And what is that other one that's out?
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, age 18 to 45. This is a horrible culture that allows doctors to prescribe something that gets people addicted. And it's not the doctor's fault, it's their training. Let's go back and train our doctors, train our hospitals. I went into Midwood Community Hospital, Stanton Community Hospital. I put them all on a plant-based diet. I had them walking up and down the halls back in 1978 when it wasn't even fashionable. I was working with Pritikin and the nurses were freaking out. Why are you walking these heart patients? You're going to get them worse. Well, now we know exercise helps heart patients. We got them better. We got them helped in the ward because our ward was doing it all right. Diet, exercise, stress management. And every one of my clients, I put them through NLP, timeline therapy, letting go all these fake emotions, put them on sleep tapes where they listen for 9 hours all night on a blackened screen, and they sleep deep because sleep is one of the keys to longevity and emotional well-being and hormone replacement. God forbid you wake up in the morning without a morning erection because you didn't sleep properly. So guys, let's do this. Let's train the world. You're doing an incredible job, the real truth about health. And I'm the first plant-based doctor to really come out outspoken and saying many of the plant-based doctors have depressed hormones, not because of their diet. And you don't go and eat meat just to get estrogen, which is estrogen dominance is a hidden factor, 10 to the 6. Estrogen comes from most meat, cheese, eggs, dairy product. It doesn't come from plastics so much. So you've got to know that the animal-based diet is tainted because they have menstrual cycles. Even if you don't hormone induce these animals, you're getting toxicity, according to my new book, Disease Hacking. And it's been endorsed by John McDougall, by Bob Goldman, by some of the top experts in the world. I hope you guys will read it too before pre-press. And if you like the book, please mention you like it, you know? And I am excited for you guys because the real truth about health should open the forum that you can't just do it on diet. You've got to exercise, you got to sleep, but you got to optimize your hormones. When you reach my age, I'm 67, I should be in a fucking grave. 65 years or older, 95% of people are dead. I'm breaking world records at my age. I'm making love to my girlfriend every morning and night. I'm living the life that a rock star does without the drugs and chemicals and alcohol. I've treated alcoholics because they have cortisol deficiency. A comment that was made wrong. Cortisol doesn't go up and it's not bad. Cortisol is the #1 key hormone that if it elevates, it protects you and you don't have to depend on adrenaline. Cortisol is a life-giving hormone. And I reference the world expert, Dr. Terry Hertog, who wrote the Atlas of Endocrinology. I've interviewed him several times, and he agrees too, IGF is not the bad guy like plant doctors are saying. IGF should be in a good range. These little dwarfs that Walter Longo talks about that are so shining health, they have miserable lives. When you give them IGF and growth hormone, they thrive. So you've got to understand that when you mix the science, the real science about hormones, peptides, supplements, stem cells, and the diet, now you've got a real solution for patients.
Let me
And
say
Nick is
something before we-
just right. Yeah.
Let me say something before we forget. I was on 2 national tours with Nathan Pritikin, and this man was crucified because he wasn't a medical doctor. Matter of fact, he didn't even have a college degree. He was just a genius. And I would sit next to him. The first 2 or 3 interviews we did, I tried to say something. Then I realized this guy was a walking encyclopedia. He had a photographic memory. He would actually tell us what he read at 10 years old, what the name of the book was, what chapter, and what the sentence said. And so let's give Nathan Pritikin a hand, because a lot of us, by the way, got a lot from him. Yes.
I spent every day for 3 years working along his side, listening to every question and answer. I too have a photographic memory. I love the man. He was amazing. And unfortunately, it was commented in the chat and I answered it that, you know, he died because of his diet. That's not true. He had a thyroid condition induced from that caused hairy cell leukemia from a radiation treatment because they were trying to knock out his thyroid because he had a hyperthyroid condition and his eyes were bulging. He had thyroid problems. He lived another 20 years because of his diet. And then a doctor got a hold of him and did interferon therapy to try and knock it out once and for all, they claimed, to get rid of the leukemia, and they knocked out his kidney function. One night he took his life because he knew.
I don't care if that guy died at 60. What he did and what he left to the world, God bless him and thank God for him. That's all I can say.
I published his entire library with his actual notes. If you go to fromthedoctors.com/Pritikin, I put this in the chat. Please visit
Say
it.
that again, slower.
Fromthedoctors.com/Pritikin. I'll type it in the notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
His entire transcripts, everything he did, and I included 5,000 slides that I converted from 35mm slides to Google Slides, and I'm going to recreate every talk with John McDougall and any other practitioner would like to join me to do it and get the word out, because the real truth about health is about bringing the truth to people. And Pritikin was a genius. He had 14 patents, engineering and in chemical engineering. He was absolute a genius. And I missed the day that I lost him. He was like a father to me. And when my wife died of hyperthyroidism, I realized 29 years ago that there was a void. I knew plant-based work, but I didn't understand hormones. So then I traced down the best hormone doctors in the world to master that, because I didn't want to see anyone suffer a tragedy in their life.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Dr. Hellman, why don't you go ahead and speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Nick, I agree with you. I want to join you on that. And then also say one of the key points here is we need to get people off of processed foods. That's number one. Number two, we need to decrease toxin levels for patients because of the high levels of toxins. They're endocrine disruptors, which are, you know, ruining the normal adrenal, estrogen, testosterone systems. So it's a complicated system, and the processed foods are highly addictive, and many people can't do this by themselves. And it's great to be here.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Joshua, you said it well, and I'm going to answer to Brian and ask him a question. When
No,
I
hold on, Nick.
use-
I'm going to
I
move
put
on.
it in my Vitamix, so I have fiber also, because I'm worried about getting a fiber on all juice.